I failed. And that was the first moment I really failed in life. I was forced to take that year out to think and to go deeper into what makes me happy and what gives me passion. Oh, he's in the beauty industry as a man. It's like, this auntie is saying this about you. I think by hearing more and more of them, it got me more and more stronger. Well, what if I built a company and actually we should use a face who's a bit darker complexion because it could sell. And it's been amazing. Like our product, we're on the House of Dragons set. Stranger Things uses us. Like it's got to places we couldn't imagine. And now today I have Fable Mane. Those aunties are messaging my mum saying, can I get some product? Now you're going to invest your life into doing something that you're passionate about because that will get success.
Welcome to the Bay HQ podcast, where we inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you give us a 5-star review. Today we have with us Akash Mehta, who's the CEO and co-founder of Fable Mane. He's also the host of the Founded Beauty podcast and a serial investor, including in LVMH's Patou. How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you've done so much stuff, right? And as we mentioned about, you're getting into investment and things now as well.
Yeah.
But when you're growing up, did you ever believe you'd be in this position that you are now?
Absolutely no. Like, I think that's what I love about, the journey of life. You never know where it will take you and how you will change or grow on that journey. I'll always be that young child. I'll just layer or build armor on this journey. You change, but you grow. So for me, I was such an introvert as a child, which a lot of people today are like, as if you're very confident. I'm like, I might be perceived as confident, or in social media I might look confident, but in reality I think I was always innately a very shy and quiet child. So I didn't think my path would be in this sort of social media, entrepreneurial, brand building part. I thought it would be more behind the scenes, which is why I ended up studying engineering for 4 years. I love just being like that math physicist behind just doing my coding. I wasn't very good at that. And I think that was a good push to be like, you're not doing this, you're doing something else.
And then how did that flip? Where did you start getting that confidence from?
So I think it was university time was, I think, the biggest moment where I shifted. Everything changed for so many reasons. So growing up, to paint that picture, I was a bit of that kind of studious kid. So GCSEs, A-level, worked super hard, did tuition every evening after school. My path was in the academic world. I'll be honest, I got all my A stars. I did very good in studying, and it was at university. In my second year of engineering, I failed. And that was the first moment I really failed in life. And at that time, it was really one of the most darkest moments, because especially when you spend 11 years, imagine also after school going to extra tuition, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, extra tuition. Wasn't my parents forcing me, it was me wanting it, right? I was like, no, I want to, I wanted to go to the best universities, get the best grades, to then suddenly being like, all your friends are going a year ahead and there you are. It's second year is one of the hardest because you have to decide, do you redo a whole degree and practically reapply and lose a whole 3 years that you could have done a degree in, or continue in something, but you're not going to get the best grade at the end because you failed and it's going to be hard. So ultimately, I was forced to take that year out to think and to go deeper into what makes me happy and what gives me passion. And I ended up doing a 6-month internship at Burberry, only because it was the only gig I could get last minute. And it was in bought media, which is basically out of home, for adverts and stuff. So digital marketing. And I loved it. I was like, wow, I'm good at this. I think this could be something I can spend my life in. I love marketing, creative brand building. So I went back, finished my degree. And I was like, now you're going to invest your life into doing something that you're passionate about, because that will get me success, not do what people think is good or what I think people will think is good. No longer do I live that projection that others put on me. It's going to be my own projection. So I decided to shift from that point. And in the same time, I was building my own social media presence without really realizing it, because I was a singer. And I'll be honest, growing up, again, being that innate shy child, I was so nervous singing in front of people that I would always missed the auditions on purpose to be like, oh, I'm ill, but I just was like, I can't do it. I was buckling last minute. I would tear up on stage and get that cold feet. And it was actually busking that helped me. So I used to busk on Portobello Road with a cappella group. So I wasn't straight away alone. I had some people with me. And then I started pursuing my own solo career, and I had a record potential deal, worked with an amazing producer. And it was that moment that I started getting some social media following. So I think I got like first 100,000 followers, and some videos went viral with some million views on like Spotify and Facebook. So then I was like, hey, like I'm getting a lot of this love on social media. People used to come up to me instead of me going to people. And I think that gained a little bit of confidence. Yeah.
It's quite interesting there because your background is so varied. When you're doing what you're doing today, right? But what we've got to so far, except for the Burberry part, it wouldn't really be obvious that you'd then go and build a hair oil company and what you've done now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you mentioned about the expectations, that's what was driving you before. And you said about you wanted to do the studying. What was the reason behind that? Was it because you wanted to get good grades, or was it because you wanted to prove yourself, or what was the, like, why did you want to do so well in the academic world?
I think there was like, okay, there's three things that, if I'm being really honest here, why it was. Of course, the first would be sort of societal and parental pressure that is secretly there, even if it's not apparently there. Sometimes in some families, it's apparently there. They tell you, you got to get good grades. My parents are amazing, and you know they never said it, but I knew they would be happier if I got my 10 A stars, and they would be prouder if I got better grades. And of course, the community around us growing up, especially in the South Asian kind of community, it was very important to get good grades. I think that's one thing. The second thing was, I remember saying to myself and to my parents, I'm not that smart. Like, I just wasn't that good at class. And that's when my parents were like, well, you know, do you want extra support? We can this world of tuition came into my world. And it was like kind of giving yourself like a leg up, right? It's like, but you've got to put in more hours and you've got to pay for those extra hours. I liked that. When I had extra tuition, I started getting smarter, started getting better grades. And I was like, no, this is like, you know, I like this. I want to grow. And I'm always, since a child, wanted to always learn. So for me, it was just extra learning what tuition was. And I think the third thing was, I didn't know any better then, because I was in the same school for 11 years. And I think I was surrounded by the same old teachers, the same old classmates. So it was sort of in this kind of not vicious, but kind of self-perpetual cycle of, okay, this is all I know. This is what I'll do. And it was only until I got to uni, I started seeing a whole new world. And I was like, hang on, like there's more to life than what's on a CV. And also after that point, I think you start really investing in yourself because you're alone a lot more of the time. So you have your thoughts a bit more, and you realize what only matters is what you think of yourself and what you do with your own life, not what other people think and what other people want you to do.
Because in some ways you would have had that bit of identity crisis, right? When you failed that year, because if so much of your self-worth had been built up, I'm smarter now, I've been done really well, I've worked so hard. And going into Burberry, you said it was just what you could get last minute. Were you looking in the fashion industry or the beauty industry, or did you have any like previous, I guess, passion or interest in that area? Or it's almost a lucky mistake that you did that?
I think it was a mix of, I'll be honest, my dad, he's been 40 years in the beauty industry and some stints in the fashion. So naturally, just having him as my mentor and inspiration in life, it was that perfect kind of funnel into, okay, let's narrow down the playing field. And obviously at the beginning, where can I get the gigs easiest is his connections. And I'll be honest, and that desperate moment, and last minute, I couldn't like go out and just cold email. I had to just see like, who can help me? I can't be doing nothing for a year. So that was a blessing that was open to anything. But I think growing up around him, beauty and fashion, I understood. And I had passion within me. Beauty especially, like I've always been a huge beauty lover. Me and my sister used to always, like whenever we went to the USA, you know, go to Sephora stores and feel like it was like a candy shop for us. And I was more passionate always about the business side of beauty, the fact that it's like fast moving consumer goods. You can have a lot of marketing moments. You can really tell a story. You can be sustainable. You can build a mission. And it's one of the most connective parts. Like beauty is in a lot of people's rituals. So I think from that angle, I was always passionate. Less from a consumer, because I don't tend to use a lot of beauty products, because I actually am quite sensitive to a lot of them. So I was like, I don't buy them for me, I buy them just to admire. So that's kind of like why I think beauty was a kind of an obvious path. It wasn't obvious at the time of university choosing, and you know, do I study management or business? Just because my school were very, very much like, look, you're incredible at math, you're incredible at physics, you're doing engineering. And I remember even like at A-levels, I wanted to do art as well. I loved art. I used to do art every evening, had my own art studio, I used to paint. And they actually didn't allow me to do A-levels in art. They actually said, you're not allowed. So I actually was forced to do maths and physics by my school, and economics. It was kind of like, that's what I accepted at that time, which I'm kind of very annoyed with looking back now, because I think it was basically a forced route without realizing it. But luckily I managed through the hidden reality of failing, which actually was a blessing in disguise, that I ended up choosing the right path for me.
It's interesting because like there's probably people right now listening we'll have some like children listening right now, would pick in A levels or trying to decide about those things. And I just can't, like, I couldn't imagine my school trying to force me to do certain A levels.
Yeah.
I did biology, chemistry, maths, and the other one, economics. It was
yeah.
very typical, right? Anyway, so, but it's that tough thing, because if that's what you're passionate about, then later on, that's what you've done so well at. It's just, you could have been in that area earlier and people were holding you back.
I think, the hardest thing about school is it's only systematic to what you're being taught. And I think the issue is you become passionate in things that you know and study. So I was passionate about math and physics because that's all I knew. Yes, there was the art, which I did know, and I was upset that wasn't considered. But unfortunately, in a lot of schools, there is the stigmatism of pecking order of what would be more successful for your career, what would be, what would be most valuable to you. And I think that's fundamentally wrong and needs to be challenged, because what really is the guiding beacon to what's going to bring you success, and most importantly, happiness, is what you enjoy. And I think no one in school should be told, you're not going to study this because, yes, you might enjoy it, but it's not going to be good for you. Because how the hell do they know? Like, it's not their life. And I can tell you, like, I took that risk. When I graduated, I took an unpaid internship at Estee Lauder. This is after, like, I went back to university after Burberry and graduated. And all my friends went on to do 6-figure finance jobs. And I was like, this doesn't make sense today, but wait a bit and it will start to make sense, because I've got passion here and I'm happy, and I'm guaranteeing myself I will find success, money, salary, whatever those things are, quicker than most people, because if I'm enjoying it, I'm going to hunt for that a lot more, and people will feel it. And honestly, that happened. Like 2 months after that moment, I became the youngest ever manager globally at Estee Lauder companies. And that was like an aha moment. I didn't get the salary, the 6-figure salaries. And that one, we a few more years to work on that. But I feel that feeling of affirmation that, oh my God, it works.
At the point where you actually chose to do that Estee Lauder internship, what was everybody saying around you? Did you have that support? And even in yourself, you can say it confidently now, but at that time, were you 100% sure this is the right thing?
It's a great question. I'll be honest. So today I've worked on myself to not care what people think as much. It's human nature. Of course, I'm going to care a little bit what people think, as much as I want to say I don't. But at that time, I cared heavily what people thought. I was still very much reliant on the affirmations of others. Like I used to go to people and say, is it good, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, great, before I move on. And I think, again, it was sort of like a birth child of like how I was raised and what my school culture was. And it took a while to grow out of it. So when I went to study engineering, it was always like, great, that's amazing. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm now working in beauty and in social media. I definitely had a lot of either backhanded comments or like little judgments from friends. Like even like when I would go to dinners and they'll be like, oh, he does Instagram likes and Facebook comments and little like they're little digs, right? And oh, he's in the beauty industry as a man. And at that time, it was, especially in the South Asian community, there was definitely these comments that I heard through people. And mainly my mum would tell me little comments like, this auntie is saying this about you. I think by hearing more and more of them, it got me more and more stronger to be like, actually, why do I care? What good does it do to me to care about these comments? Because that's, again, their opinion and probably their own wrong projections by their parents or their grandparents. And fine, that's their truth. They shouldn't be telling me that's my truth. And if I listen to them, how will I ever find happiness in what I do? If I acknowledge and say, great, let me now try to inspire you by showing you, hey, I can have success, I can have happiness. And then maybe they'll start looking in a few years and be like, hang on, like, no, actually, that's really cool. He's in it. And that's literally what been my beacon. Now today I have Fable Mane. Those aunties are messaging my mum saying, can I get some product? So it's actually quite funny how you just have to remind yourself, like, what you can choose. Do you want to listen or hear? And I chose to hear, but not listen. And that helped me a lot.
And even from my perspective, right, as a British Asian man, I don't know that many people who have built big followings on, say, Instagram and these kind of platforms. And at the point you were doing it, there'd been even fewer. So you're looking around and seeing people are making questions and like judging you and things like that. But you haven't got that many people to say like, oh, but this guy's doing it. Or like, I can look up to that person. Yeah. And now there's starting to be more. But even then, if people listening, there's obviously, you can think of, if you were to name 10 accounts of over 100,000 followers on Instagram that are appreciation females, you could probably do it quite easily. If you had to do it for guys, I can't think of that many.
Yeah. And I felt that, like, I was practicing influencer back in like a few years ago when I would accept monetary funds for posting. Now I only do it if I do it, it goes to my fund and my charity, and it's for things that are business related. But back in the day, I was always on this kind of call sheet of influencers because I tick that box, if you talk about tokenism, of like, oh, he's a South Asian male influencer with that much following. So I was always invited to things because there wasn't really many. Even today, there is more today, but not as many as you would think. For me personally, like I just used it as, okay, I need to find a way to inspire many more to put in the work to grow and to enter these industries, right? Because the reason why there isn't is there's not many that end wanting to work, for example, in the beauty industry or apply for those roles, or not many that want to share their life on social media and then grow. So I think it's a matter of, yes, we can focus on, oh, why is South Asian men not getting seen or not getting views or people not following? But I kind of want to rethink it and say, that's a very negative approach. That doesn't grow. Let's inspire them to get more to actually start posting, like yourself, create podcasts and get out there. And I think that's what we'll see is if you have this mentality, a lot more people will be in the industry like us. And that's exciting. It's an exciting thought.
Yeah, I think it's the problems you face is what a lot of other guys will face.
Yeah.
So it's not that there's so many guys who are trying to be successful. It's because a lot of them won't try because they're worried about the same problems you faced.
And they're listening more than they're hearing, right? From these aunties. I kind of go back to these aunties. I feel sorry aunties. But the point is you have to learn when is the right moment to put yourself first. And sometimes experiment and try things that you might feel uncomfortable because of that projections from a childhood that people have enforced onto you. But that's not your reality. Your reality is what you try and what you experience. So I always encourage everyone, because I get so many messages like, oh, like you're the only like South Asian I've seen at Dior. How did you get into this company? My parents have made me do engineering or law, but I actually want to work in fashion or beauty. And when I was at Dior, I think I would probably get once a week a message like that. And I would always say, okay, like A, I want to inspire you that this is possible and you should do it. But B, what have you done to try to get into that? Have you spoken to people? Have you gone out there? No, just in my head. Like I don't want to say it yet because I don't know if I should. Do I really want that then? I said, no, you do. The fact that you're even thinking about it is a curiosity. Chase that curiosity, put in the work, communicate to people, and don't care about the people that say you shouldn't do this or what would people think. Only care about what you think and what makes you happy. It's very, very important. And I really, really hope anyone listening today remembers that, because it's easier for me to say it. And trust me, there'll be days where I go back into my old ways, but I have these kind of like manifestos and words that I have to chant to myself. So for example, one thing is I've been single for a long time, and I used to always make excuses like, oh, I'm busy, I'm working, I don't have time for that. And instead, my manifesto is, I'm currently single, but I'm open to a relationship. And no matter wherever I go and I ask this question, I'm going to ask them, like, I'm open to it. Don't say negative words, because you will then start believing it.
Yeah. And obviously, once you started at Dior and Estee Lauder first, and you went on to all of these other amazing companies within beauty and fashion industries, how was that journey itself as somebody who potentially was an outsider beforehand and there wasn't many people who looked like you in those industries? How did you find that experience, and how did that help you grow and learn?
I'll be honest, it was really tough, and it's still probably tough for many people. The industry is very much still governed and operated through the lens of people not of color, let's say. You see these like statements of a room full of executives that are all white men, and I'll be honest, it pretty much is that a lot of the time. I actually, at Dior, I had one of the most amazing experiences. Of course, I had those sort of Emily in Paris moments. I, of course, had people that weren't so friendly. This is like any workforce. I don't want to say this is a Dior thing. It's a company thing at that stage, that scale of business as well. But there were moments, I'll be honest, where racism was there. And I had moments where I looked at my skin color in meetings and I'm like, wow, like they're kind of like isolating me in that conversation, or they're saying something negative about me without realizing it. And that's how bad it got. They didn't even realize that we were saying something wrong. In those moments, and being honestly one of the only people of color in a boardroom, I was in the COMEX of Dior, so I was in these big leadership meetings, I felt I'm someone who likes to inspire and make change. So I actually, at that moment, I was like, what if I had a company where I had a board and we wouldn't be saying this? Or what if I built a company and then they would go in those meetings and say, hey, actually, we should use a face who's a bit darker complexion because it could sell. The only way to do that is by putting those people on billboards and making the perception of people change. So for me, I thought, let me create my own brand. I still didn't know really like what that would be at that time. This was like, first and second years of Dior. But I knew that was when the egg was starting to cultivate. The seed was there. And I was like, this is my path, is I want to get to a point where I can put South Asians on billboards and I can start inspiring the industry that a South Asian owned brand can reach a lot of people and can be successful and maybe can reach the revenues of Dior. And that's when Fable and Mane and the inspiration and sort of my real grit and determination behind it comes from, is these boardroom meetings has inspired me even to this day.
It's what you mentioned there about the billboards, for example. I feel like I remember seeing an Instagram recently where you're in New York, right? And you had your picture plastered across the walls. And you can see the busy streets of all the taxis going by, and you are doing what you set out to do in many ways, right? And even not just your face, but all the other faces you're putting out there, the people you're working with. And obviously with Fable and Mane, initially you're working with your sister who's been on the podcast. Yeah. And she told a lot of the story about Fable and Mane. Yeah. But for your decision to come on board and join your sister, that's what we haven't heard. So tell us about that. Like, what made you say let's do it? She had the idea to launch a hair oil, potentially as a brand. And this name Fable and Mane was stemming from our own grandma's rituals of grandma, like our nanny, massaging these oils and telling a story. So Fable and Mane, story in hair. Innately, this was our childhood memories. So when she came to me, she was like, listen, like, I'm the creative person, but I have no idea. Like, how do I get this to market? Like, do we do this? Do we do that? And I was a lot more of that kind of corporately trained business entrepreneurial mindset, like budgets, P&L, like this is what you need as well, not just a great idea. So I think she really wanted to work with me, but I had a whole path set out to me in LVMH. I was very close to my CEO and my general manager, and I sort of could even visually see like an incredible growth opportunity in LVMH. But there was a moment where I thought, okay, let me try to do both. So I was working full-time while still building Fable and Mane, and we were LinkedIn messaging Sephora. They were interested. We had some meetings with them. And I actually told my whole like CEO and everyone, I told them like, hey, I'm building it on the side, not in office hours. And it actually helped. Like our hair oil, for example, the scent of it is created by the perfumer of Dior, because I was speaking to people there. And so it was like a perfect balance. So I was like, this could work. And actually there was one car journey where I think it was like after a Sephora meeting, I was going back to work and the next day to Paris. And my sister was like, I need you to quit and do this full time if we're going to launch this. So I didn't actually hesitate 1 minute. I quit. I then had about 4 or 5 months before the actual launch date that we were planning. And I just took that role as CEO to really build the team, grow the business opportunity, build a proper portfolio, and relied on my sister to be creative juice, the product developer. And that yin and yang worked perfectly, and we haven't looked back. And then using all our experiences, right? So my sister seeing the lack of diversity in hair care in the industry, the lack of innovative formulas with Ayurveda, me seeing the lack of representation in the industry, why our recent campaign is an all South Asian cast. It was very important for us to use our background and our experiences, propel them to help the industry go further. But no matter what, have fun. And to this day, it's been probably the best years of my life building Fable Mane with my sister. And with the first Ayurvedic brand at Sephora, which is great, but with the first Sibling founded brand at Sephora. And I think that's been incredible, because every time I ask someone, I'm like, would you work with a Sibling? They're like, no. And I'm like, I want people to realize, like, I never thought I would work with my sister. But actually, by just trying, being sensible, being smart, we had those meetings, we put boundaries, it's actually been the biggest blessing of my life. So yeah, it's so lovely to hear that as well. So I've got 2 sisters myself. Yeah. And we've worked together in some capacities before. Yeah. But I think, like you said, going full in on a business together is quite a scary thought, because I don't know about you, but in the Punjabi families, right, there's a lot of people, when they get older, the siblings fall out over small things, right?
And that often, right? My father worked with his family, family business, and family business is not an old concept. I think in our generation, it's often quite scary, because independence is a lot more exciting, and they've seen fallouts when it comes to larger revenues or exits, when brothers or sisters start to we don't talk to their auntie or uncle anymore. And that's something that, I had to be careful of. But that's when I said to my sister on day one, and we cried in this meeting. We had a lawyer, and then we talked about all the permutations of what could go wrong. Nikki has a relationship partner. Oh, this person now is telling Nikki, make sure you get the money and cash out. You're putting in more work this month. You get persuaded, you get coerced. We thought about everything. And we put down protection mechanisms. And I think by having that healthy talk at the beginning has made us today, when we're starting to see seeds of that come to life, like, oh, I'm fighting, or you're not coming to the office. We go back to that moment and say, stop, let's move on. And actually, when you build that and you start building the brand even more, that's becoming bigger than us. I owe it to the company, the team, my retailers. We have to put those differences aside and go forward. And at the end of the day, the antithesis and backbone behind this whole brand is our grandma, our late grandparents, and we owe it to them to put them into a good light and put our differences aside in those moments. But I definitely still think it's something that if you can work with your sibling, like be smart, set boundaries, but just don't forget to remember that you are siblings first, business partner second. So we have to have those healthy moments of like, let's just watch a film, or let's go on a holiday, but no work, and that's very, very important.
Yeah, I think that's so important even for people listening who maybe think about doing the same thing, to even understand that you had that process at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people are awkward about that kind of thing, but it's so important,
or,
right?
if you feel you trust this person, which you do, because, you know this person for life, you might be like, we'll talk about it later. Or like, we're good. I trust you. You trust me. But no, you got to have that meeting and have it in writing, have a joint venture agreement, have a shareholders agreement, like put it in proper, because you're doing it not for you and your ego. You're doing it for your team. You're doing it for your stakeholders. But why it's so important to also have those fun moments is because as you grow in the business, if your relationship and your last years, which you remember the most because that's the most recent, is built on business talk and meetings, you will start losing that relationship that inherently makes you stronger and even becomes your superpower when it comes to business. So we have to put in those moments of, okay, like we're going to this premiere of this film. I'm taking you. You're my plus one. And often they'll be like, I always welcome you. You're not my plus one. It's like, no. Like even fun stuff. You're my plus one. I got you. That's like, I think that's been really nice because that's when I really get closer to her. And actually the next day when we get into the office, I'm like, I feel even like more excited to work with her.
And you had a recent launch, right? And that's where you've just come back from. Can you tell us a bit about that? What's the idea behind that?
So our brand has been premised on pre-wash and wash products. So right, we've had shampoo conditioners on our hero product, which is the hair oil. And it's been amazing. Like our product has been all over. We're on the House of Dragon set. Stranger Things uses us. Like it's got to places we couldn't imagine. But one thing that we started to realize, especially from these films and TV, was people were always asking for styling, like post-wash and like, hey, like, okay, now we need something after we come out of the shower. So we knew we needed to do this. So we launched Maha Mane. Maha means great, mighty, like Maharaja. And Maha Mane is basically a mane care range, so styling range, that will start to develop a lot of exciting products in the line. We launched though as an oil brand with a post-wash oil. So this is a styling oil that has heat protection. But the most exciting part beyond product is the fact that we were able to incorporate in this campaign my mum as the face. So this whole journey, my mum, bless her, she's always been like, okay, like the grandma is the story, grandpa is the healing element of it, dad is the mentor / investor. Where the hell am I? Like, hello, I'm here. So we're like finally like, okay, welcome to the tribe. You're part of the Fable Mane Tiger tribe. And she's the face. And oh my gosh, it's been the most incredible thing. My first day on set with seeing her, I cried because I saw her like in the campaign video. She was twirling, she was doing kathak dancing. Her hair was so beautiful, her face, her smile. And I was like, she's in her element. And I actually realized like I want her in all our campaigns, and she's beautiful. If you go in Fable Mane, you go in my Instagram, you'll see my mom. She's like blonde hair, looks nothing like me, but she is someone that I think is a brand in and out. Without her, I wouldn't be here. So I think it's just been so nice to have her part of the campaign. And then we went a step further because Sephora and retailers were like, look, we want to show diversity in the campaign, so we need different models, different hair textures, hair types, and often that equates to, unfortunately, that sort of checkbox approach when it comes to marketing. Like we need an Asian model, an Indian model, a white model, like you need a Caucasian model. You will start needing this checkbox, and I was like, that goes back to my meetings in these big companies where I was like, okay, well, South Asians were never even on that checkbox, and secondly, like this felt very tokenism approach. So I thought, well, actually, the brand is rooted in Ayurveda, but there's so much diversity in South Asian countries. Why can't we celebrate that? So our whole campaign was celebrating South Asian diversity and culture. And we had an all South Asian cast with all different hair types. So when you look from the back, you're like, oh, that's a very diverse shoot. And then you turn around like, gotcha, it's us, you know? So the whole story is like made by us, but for all. And that's been a really successful campaign. And my mum is the main face of that. And I've had like my friends and models and yeah, and me, my sister. And, you know, why I put my family in is because I never saw people like us, you know, on billboards. So why can't I put people like us on billboards, and also it's cheaper. I don't have to pay myself, so no usage rights there. So
that's one of the things I see as well, is because sometimes people are very cautious about using their own face and their own brand. But it's like, you're free, rather than pay some influencer huge amounts of money.
It's free.
Yeah.
Also, we have a bit of ego. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like seeing my face sometimes there, here and there. Like, no one else will put my face in there, so I might as well. If I'm paying for the space in the billboard, I might as well put my face. But also, like, you know, as a founder-led brand, and why I created my podcast, Founded Beauty, I really feel the championness of like founders and putting them into light, and their advocacy, their love for the brand is so important to connect deeper. I mean, if you were going to speak to a spokesperson of a brand or a sales representative or the founder, who would you buy from? The founder. And you know, all of them are paid or incentivized to sell you the product anyway, but the founder can innately talk about the experience, the why, the love. And I think that's very important. So I think seeing the founder in campaigns is sort of where I want to see the industry go more and more. And also often, like, the founders will relate more to people than the most beautiful high fashion end model, because that's more like realistic, I think, for a lot of the consumers. And that's what I wanted to do, is kind of rethink the narrative of how we consume ads, editorials, and make it a lot more connected.
It's really good to hear like what you've done there, but you've done so many successful product launches now. And obviously you learn each time you do it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you made sure you did in this one that you learned from the mistakes you did in the past?
So with product launches, and I think I'll answer the question in a bit more of a macro perspective with like learning from failures. So failures, number one, are so important. I want to rethink the way we think of failures. And having failed my second year at uni and thought it was the end all be all, it actually was the biggest blessing in my life. So I think it's how you rethink that, re-engineer it, and realize, hey, I'm growing armor from this. I'm learning. And that is so powerful. But then, yes, you've got to make sure your learning means maybe you don't repeat. Maybe you realize for next time, what can I do differently? So I think it's about taking notes of everything you've done in the past and making sure you remember and maybe strategize on what you could do next that's maybe better. So when we had, let's say, a launch and something went wrong, and always something goes wrong every single time, we make sure we write them down, we speak as a team, and we all learn, and in all our remits, we all know what to avoid, and we all learn from each other's mistakes as well. But then, of course, new ones will come, as I said. So this launch, again, you think we got it right? We had a big launch event, spent so much money, and then we realized no one really sent the products in time. So I was like, hang on, the product's not going to come in time now. So we're having a whole event for a new launch, and no goodie bags, no product to show, no product to display. What the hell have we just done? And that's something like, we're like, how did this even happen after doing hundreds, like not hundreds, but like loads of product launches? So we had to but then I'm so good because I have this rethinking and I get quite excited. It's quite freaky. I get like, oh my God, okay, I'm an escape room fanatic. So for me, I think of it as like a puzzle. Let's solve this. So I'm like, okay, no time to dwell. What good does that do to us? We can blame game. We can think about what went wrong, but let's just focus on the solution now. Later, we'll talk about that. So I go straight into solving mode, and I'm like, okay, what we can do? We can send someone from the US. We have a New York employee. Let's send her flyer in. We'll pay for 2 luggages, and let's bring all the product in tonight. That we can guarantee. And that's what we did. And it saved the day. So, and that was a quick thing. I didn't have 6 hours. I had to literally book the flight in the hour to make it on time. But that's what I would encourage everyone, is rethink of how you think of failures. It's not a shame to get excited about them, problem solve them, think of it as a puzzle, and then communicate and learn and digest that so you don't maybe do it again.
So obviously now that you've done so well with Fable Mane and obviously your career before, you've started investing in other companies too.
Yeah.
How's that journey started? What are you excited about there?
Yeah, so I mean, so for Fable Mane, we haven't taken any investment. It's been self-funded to this date. So I've never really been adverse into raising or fundraising, but I've always been very passionate about it because for me, it's a way to give back. It's a way to invest in others and bring people up. And on this journey, I've had a lot of people wanting advice or advisory board positions. And then naturally, after that, there comes a conversation. Oh, by the way, I'm doing a series or friends and family. Do you want to come on? Like, you know, you're helping me a lot. You might as well get some equity for this or come on board. And I was like, you know what? Like, yeah, like this sounds really interesting. So I started investing in a lot of different companies, and I tried to learn on that process because I never got to learn from my own brand. So I wanted to like always sit down and be like, Okay, what is a safe agreement in the US? Okay, a simple agreement for equity. Okay, now I understand. Okay, but what is this and what is that? And I sat down with everyone, read every paperwork, and now I feel like I'm a pretty good investor, even if I haven't invested as much, because I read and learned a lot through that process. So investing was first initially for me to learn and grow, then to empower, and now it becomes sort of an addiction because I love investing in people and being on their journey. Because if I have limited time in my own journey now, at least by investing in others, I can feel and be part of their journey. So that's sort of what I've done. So look, I've invested in Indiawild, Deepa Khosla's brand. It's a similar brand. We both have hair oils, but for me, that's my collaboration over competition approach. And she's one of my best friends and I love supporting her. I'm invested in this incredible brand called Dirty. It's a mushroom tea by Andy and Simon Salter. And this is where I feel like it's not just beauty, right? I want to expand it to wellness and things that I'm passionate about and I want to see more of in the world. So let's watch this space. And if anyone has a brand or some concept that they're thinking about investing, don't feel shy to DM people because they might just want to invest in you.
And what kind of things do you look for when you're trying to pick who to invest in and whether or not it's a good investment for you?
For me, I have a CFO and he goes more deeper, and I kind of outsource that because I'm terrible at the nitty gritty, and I will just go by passion of everything. But you got to be smart. Is it the right evaluation? Is it the right amount? Blah blah. But I look for unique idea. I look for passion in their pitch and really drive to grow something into their industry that hasn't been there before, or maybe has been there but needs to innovate and change. And the person. For me, it's I just want to make friends, be on the journey with you. And I tend to be an investor that's not that informative. I don't need information every minute. I don't need what's happening. I don't need the ROI. It's probably a bad thing to say as an investor, but I'm not doing it to get a 4x, 5x. I'm doing it to be on this journey with you and grow and make an impact in this world. It's why with Fable Mane, when we exit eventually, most of the funds I do will go to our Fable fund, our charity, because I'm not doing this to put money in my pocket. I'm doing this to make an impact in the world. Same with my investments. I'm not doing this to make more money from me. We're going to come in this world. We come in this world alone. We'll leave this world alone. I don't need more and more of that. I just need more and more impact. And that's what I want to do. So I'm an impact entrepreneur and an impact investor.
So your charity work has a lot to do with in India and with tiger conservation and things like that as well. So I know that Nikki talked about that a lot and we're short on time.
Yeah.
So if anybody is interested in that, make sure you check out
Nikki's. And she's just as equally passionate as I. And the Fable Fund is super exciting. We're going to go into documentaries and just raise awareness and I want to raise $1 million by next year. But the one thing I'm doing which is quite interesting with this charity is we're doing it all with our personal money first, building the relationships on the ground with the local organizations and charities before we open it up as a public NGO and charity, because I feel better I first test the grounds and try with my own money before I take other people's money. And then later, if people want to support, there'll be many ways.
So make sure you check that out. And also, it's time for the quick fire questions.
Yep, let's do it.
So first of all, who are 3 British Asians that you'd love to shout out that you think people listening right now should be paying attention to or learning from?
The most first and obvious one, it's a great question. And sorry if I miss people out because, it's 3 and it's on the things on the top of my head. My sister first. You can listen to her episode, but she is my biggest inspiration in life and someone I would say you should follow her because you should follow her because she posts everything straight away. I take time. So if you want to see the real latest scoop, she just does it. Sometimes it's so annoying. I'm like, you already posted that? I wanted to post it on Fable Mane first, or she just goes and posts it. So she's really on social media and very, very open with her sharing and really fun, really creative content. I wouldn't say this, but I want to say my dad is amazing, but he doesn't have social media, so don't follow him. If I were going a second person, I would say Jay Shetty, and I would even say, Radhi Shetty too. Basically for me, I met Jay recently in LA in his home, and I was so amazed by how genuinely nice Jay is and how kind and helpful. A little anecdote, he was moved to LA and he said, oh, if you want me to look for homes and I'll go visit them because you're in London, let me do that. This guy is the busiest guy in the world and he's willing to go see homes for me. I've followed his content for a while, but I never really consumed it as regularly as I should have. But meeting him in person and then now seeing the content, he is incredible. So Jay, 100% say he's one of the best people in the world, and I think you should all follow him. And the third person I would say would be, it's a hard one, Imran Ahmed. He's someone I recently had the luxury of meeting him at Business of Fashion Voices, and what he's doing with Business of Fashion and now Business of Beauty is incredible. And loads of people in my life have told me to meet him. So I think just already hearing that, knowing that loads of people think I should meet him is already a sign. And then when I did meet him, I was blown away. So those are the 3 people.
Yeah. So all 3 of them are great people. Make sure you give them a follow.
Yeah.
So the next one is, If people are listening right now, they're looking for guidance, what should they come to you about?
No, like I'm one of many people that you should come to if you're looking for guidance. I don't have all the answers. I'm still learning everything. But I think one thing I really feel I can help a lot of people is definitely how to start a business or think about that curiosity of entrepreneurship. Like I'm there to like definitely give some guidance and advice I've gone through. Two, like how to fundraise or invest. Being an investor, I think I know a lot of tips and tricks. I know a lot of people I can connect people to if needed. And three, just I think anyone thinking about going into a complete different industry and have no idea but have that curiosity, I hope to be an advocate for that, being someone who went from engineering into social media and then from social media into brand building. Like, I haven't really looked at what is on my CV should dictate what is my path and my future. And when I hire, I certainly do not look at that either. And I think a lot of new entrepreneurs and CEOs are looking at the person, their energy and their drive, less than what's more on that piece of paper. So that should be hopefully like a comforting thought to know, like, you might feel jaded and stuck right now in what you do. You might start to feel not that happy. Just experiment, try it. And if you need to speak to a few people, speak to a few people just to get reassured. But honestly, you got it within you. Just go for it. Yeah.
And then on the other side, what's something you're looking for help with right now? What's something that somebody listening might be able to help you with?
One thing I'm definitely looking at help is, and this is funny because I'm a millennial, but I'm trying to like get better with the Gen Z. So definitely like more Gen Zs I can speak to, learn about their, what they need, especially as a hire, team is one of the hardest factors. Like I pride myself by being a great manager and I've built a really great, employee and company culture, but it's not easy, right? Because you get now this whole new shift of like, working from home and people have different kind of requests and it's very different to before when you build a company. So I just want to make sure I build a perfect workforce that balances the new Generation Z and their needs plus the millennials' needs plus the baby boomers' needs and, having them all sing, because I'm having a lot of conversations with baby boomers being upset with Gen Zs and Gen Zs being upset. And, it's hard to balance it as someone who's now managing everyone. So anyone who's sort of figuring out that mix, let me know your secret formula. I think it just takes time and communication.
So I've really enjoyed interviewing you today and hearing your story. Have you got any final words for the audience?
My last final word is my motto in everything is more collaboration, less competition. If you are feeling, you are the only one in your industry or you're one of many, doesn't matter. Just communicate, collaborate, and be so strong-minded with your own path, your own journey. That is your beacon, not other people's opinions.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us. And we don't think you realize how important you are. Because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians. If you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission and you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.